Hi guys, and welcome to another lecture. We will be discussing religion today, specifically polytheisms, monotheisms, and the distinctions between these two religious traditions. So monotheisms are the religions with one god, and polytheisms are obviously religions with multiple gods. So examples for monotheisms would be the three great Abrahamic religions in the world today: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And for polytheism, you would have most of the sort of other well-known religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Sikhism, and so on. The important thing to keep in mind here is that there is almost a geographic split. If you look at Jerusalem and westwards, so the Middle East and the West, the Western tradition tends to be monotheistic, while the Eastern tradition of religion, at least based on how we look at the world today, tends to be polytheistic. So the Western religions like Christianity and Judaism are monotheisms, and the Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism are polytheistic traditions. Let's go into some of the key distinctions between the two. Monotheisms, because they believe in one God, tend to have a very strict emphasis on a singular truth, while polytheisms tend to approach what is true and what is reality through a multitude of perspectives. So let me explain. If you go to a polytheism, there will generally tend to be many different spiritual leaders, many different thinkers, many different texts, many different ways of thinking. And if you wanted to attain spiritual enlightenment, it was up to you to figure out a path. There are many people who have left out books and words and teachings in their own journeys, and it's up to you to choose your own path. The monotheistic tradition, however, is very different. If you look at most or all monotheisms, they will tend to have a holy text. This could be something like the Bible or the Quran or the Torah for their respective religions. And they would also have figures whose word you cannot go against. So if you look at the role of a prophet in all of these monotheisms, people who are directly communicating the word of God to us as mere mortals, going against either their teaching, questioning their teaching, or going against what is in the holy text, which is considered to be the word of God, those would be considered blasphemy in the monotheistic tradition. Those would be considered unforgivable crimes in a purely more strict monotheistic society. Where the whole nature of polytheism, on the other hand, is in people being exposed to a variety of different ideas and picking one. If you think about this, this makes total sense given the theological structure of both traditions. Monotheisms are structured in a way where there is one God who is all-seeing, all-capable, all-knowing, right? As in omniscient, omnipresent, right? And omnipotent. So in a setup like that, in a structure like that, it is easy to see why the rules and the laws and the teachings are much more strictly guarded than they would be in a more lax system like the polytheistic ones. Let's look at the polytheistic ones. They have pantheons of gods. They have different mythological tales that might sort of have different versions of gods in these pantheons. The gods and goddesses themselves are portrayed as entities with flaws, with very human emotions like jealousy and anger and wanting revenge and pettiness. So the portrayal of divinity in a polytheistic tradition is much more in the human and mythological sort of sense. While in the monotheistic tradition, the portrayal of divinity is as this all-powerful entity who is capable of anything. The other key distinction between the two is that because of the strictness in their theology, monotheisms tend to be far more evangelical than the polytheisms. Of course, there are exceptions like Judaism because they see themselves as the chosen tribe of God. right? So they're different in terms of wanting to convert other people. But if you look at the general mode of how monotheisms function, particularly Christianity and Islam, you will see that there's a very strong evangelical current running through it, because their theology itself says that it is your duty to save the souls of the unenlightened masses. Because in the polytheistic traditions, there is no widespread idea of, if you do not subscribe to book A, text A, you are destined for hell. If you do not subscribe to the teachings of this person or that person, you are destined to hell. That does not happen. I mean, even the Bhagavad Gita, as I was saying, is more of a guide, right, than some kind of document which you will burn in hell for if you violate. With the monotheisms, once again, that's very different. So the monotheisms tend to be strongly based on converting other people to your way of thinking, right? Spreading the message of your ideology, of your theology, and trying to win people over. Because in the monotheistic tradition, when you convert people to your religion, when you win people over to your way of thinking, you are essentially saving their souls. You are saving their souls from what you genuinely believe to be a horrible fate for all eternity. With the polytheistic traditions, the reason that they tend to not be as evangelical, and the reason that they tend to not have sort of, let's say, missionary movements and conversion movements and things like that on the scale that Christianity or Islam do, is because in the polytheistic tradition, this way of thinking does not exist. So ultimately, the major key distinction between the two, to me, tends to be this strict, cogent hierarchy with a strict framework of laws. With the monotheisms, you have it to a sort of, there's so much meticulous detail in terms of what you can do and what you cannot do in these texts, whereas in the polytheistic tradition, it's more about live and let live and find out as you go. So that's it, guys. I hope you liked the video. I hope you found that distinction interesting, and I hope it kept you occupied for the last 7 minutes. If you like this content, please subscribe and like. I'll see you guys next time.